There I stood, at the edge of a choice that felt too heavy for my shaking hands. The room was quiet, yet inside me, voices screamed, doubts, questions, what-ifs, all together in a screeching roar. The fear of what laid beyond this decision froze me in place, my thoughts caught in a web of anxiety. It wasn't just hesitation, it was a deep, suffocating struggle. The unknown stretched out in front of me like a void, and I couldn't take the step. What if I failed? What if I lost what little ground I had left? I was no stranger to this feeling. My mind brought me back to a younger version of myself, a child holding the edges of familiarity like a lifeline. I remembered standing in the doorway of my childhood home as my parents packed boxes into the back of a moving truck. The house was being sold. The life I knew was being taken piece by piece. Change, I had learned then, wasn't a gentle invite. It was turmoil, a force that broke everything, leaving behind nothing but questions and a deep sense of loss. From that day on, change became something to fear, something to fight against, no matter the cost. And so, I've fought it for years. I've held on to the safety of what I know, wrapping myself in the illusion of control, pretending the ground I stood on would hold if I stayed still. But even that safety feels broken now, doesn't it? It doesn't help. It breaks. Resistance, I'm beginning to see, isn't protection. It's a dark void, one I've built with my own hands. As I stand here, caught between fear and possibility, I wonder, how much longer can I grab onto something that no longer helps me? There comes a time when the weight of staying the same grows heavier than the fear of stepping in the unknown. I felt it one night, sitting alone in the darkness, my thoughts swirling in my mind like a storm I couldn't outrun. The resistance I had grabbed onto so desperately had turned into a killing force, pinning me in place. I wasn't safe here. I was trapped. Every attempt to maintain control, to keep my world from changing, had left me staring at an empty version of myself. I've been here before. I think back to a younger me, standing on the sidelines of an opportunity I was too afraid to take. There had been a time when a chance for change, for something better, was within my reach. But instead of stepping forward, I let the fear of the unknown hold me back. I told myself I wasn't ready, that the risk was too great, that I could wait and try later. But later never came. I watched that chance change into regret, a deep wound that has lingered ever since. And now, as I sit here again, I feel the voices of that moment talking to me. How many times have I done this? How many times have I convinced myself that avoiding the unknown would spare me pain, only to find that the pain of staying still was far worse? Avoiding discomfort doesn't erase it, it multiplies it, stretching it out over days, months, years. Something changed in me that night, not in a sudden, dramatic way, but in the self-realization that the life I wanted couldn't exist in this fragile shell I'd built. If I wanted more, I'd have to risk breaking it open. I'd have to face the unknown. There was a day, not so long ago, when everything I feared seemed to connect. It wasn't a crazy moment, just a choice, a moment that should have happened without problems, but it lingered, its weight heavier than it should have been because it needed me to step into the unknown. I was standing on the edge of a decision, torn between the safety of what I knew and the deep, unpredictable world beyond it. I remember that feeling vividly, the tightness in my chest, the voice in my mind telling me to run, but for reasons I still can't fully explain, I didn't. I moved forward, I took the risk, and what I found on the other side wasn't the disaster I'd imagined. It was small, just a conversation that led to a new connection, an opportunity I couldn't have planned for, but it was enough to plant a seed. Now, as I face uncertainty again, I hold on to that memory like a key. It reminds me that not every unknown is a threat, that sometimes the things we fear most hold the potential to change us in ways we never thought possible. I've started to see uncertainty differently. It's no longer the enemy I need to fight, but a teacher, guiding me to places I'd never reach if I stayed locked away in my own world. It's not easy. The fear doesn't disappear, but I've learned that fear can coexist with courage, that progress isn't about getting rid of doubt, but moving through it, one step at a time. Because in the end, it's the moments we step into the unknown that makes us, not the ones we grab onto out of fear. And maybe, just maybe, that's where real growth truly starts. I stand here now, on yet another unknown path, the horizon stretching out before me like a blank canvas. The fear is still there. It hasn't disappeared, nor do I think it ever will, but it feels different now, smaller, quieter, like a small whisper instead of a definitive roar. I take a breath, not to silence it, but to carry it with me. For the first time, I don't need to control what's ahead. I think back to the moment that started all of this, the memory from so long ago, where the thought of change froze me. Back then, I saw uncertainty as a storm, something to be avoided at all costs. That moment, so heavy in its weight, shaped me for years. But now, revisiting it, I see something I couldn't see before. It wasn't the storm I feared, but my own inability to navigate it. I've learned since then that the unknown is not an enemy. It's a friend, one that walks next to us in every step we take. It wants us to trust, first in ourselves, and then in the path we can't see. I've stopped fighting it, stopped trying to wrestle it into submission. Instead, I've begun to welcome it, to let it show me the spaces I would never have dared to explore explore on my own. This journey isn't finished. Maybe it never will be, but I'm okay with that. Each step forward feels lighter, each moment a reminder that I don't need to have all the answers. Uncertainty isn't here to defeat me. It's here to teach me how to move forward without them. And in that, I found a strength I never knew I had.